In this exercise, we're going to talk about modifying the parts list. Now, I gave this its own exercise because there's a lot to do with modifying and editing the parts list and saving it back to the BOM. So I wanted to go through and give it enough time to really go through everything here. So to start with, we've already been editing it just by dragging it around. If we need to relocate it, once again, the easiest way to relocate a table in Inventor is to actually grab the text, move it around, snap it where you want it to be. If you double click on it, it brings up the parts list editor. And this will allow us to come in here and do several things. Maybe one of the things we need to do is we're going to buy this bumper, and it comes in one size, even though it's been modeled as a left and a right or a mirror. We're not really going to buy it like that. We're going to buy the generic one and just kind of glue a square one on the end, and it's going to be good enough. So what I can do is I can come in here and I can override the quantity, and I can actually hide this row here so it doesn't show up on my parts list. I can come in here and I can add information. So I can insert a custom part, and that part is going to be some kind of adhesive or something that you're going to do on the gasket so that it doesn't move around whenever you go to bolt it down. And basically what this is a virtual part. This really isn't going to show up. You're not going to model this, but you're just going to take a little bit of silicone and put it around the edge so that the gasket sticks to it while you stick it together. So once you do that, you can say renumber over here. And you can see what happens is that changes the item number here for the case to number 7. I can actually save that back to my bill of materials. So now number 7 is number 7 in the bill of materials, and it's going to override this mirrored part. I have the ability to do a column chooser just like I do in styles. I can go through group settings, and what this allows you to do is if you had more than one thing in here, you could group it together. This is really especially true with things like structural members, angled steel. You may have 3 or 4 different part numbers for angled steel because some of it's 12 inches long, some of it's 24, 36, whatever. But you just want to roll all that up into one total length. You can actually tell it to give you the total length of all of them rolled together and just call them all angled steel or whatever it needs to be. And you do that through these group settings. You can set that up. Hit OK there. We can filter through this stuff, and we can actually sort it out. So we can sort it out by item number, quantity, or part number. Part number is probably going to be the most logical. We can export this out to Excel, and then we can look at the table layout, the information of how it's going to show up on the screen. And we hit OK. So now we get our nice little parts list. It's very simple to do, but it's very powerful. Sometimes whenever you're doing some pretty tricky extreme exports out to like MRP, ERP systems, you can actually have to create a parts list that's not going to go on a drawing per se, but it's actually going to be used to export that out. I've got one user that does this real tricked out parts list just so that she can turn around and put it into Excel. Then she takes it into Access, and then she puts it into her ERP system. It's a long workaround, but she's got hundreds of thousands of parts. And that whole process that sounds very cumbersome takes about 5 minutes. Whereas before they were literally going through for days and days and days and typing in. And then every time something changed, they would have to go back and type it in again. So you can use the export command and get really creative with Excel or Access and do just some really awesome things with the parts list outside of Inventor. And you can even bring that back in if you need to. So play with this. Edit the parts list and see how easy it is to move things around. The parts list itself is controlled by a style. So if we come up here to our Manage tab and go to Styles, we can come in here and we can see that there is a parts list, and it works just like the revision table does. So we can decide what columns are there by default. We can also decide what text, what heading, do you want it to go top down or bottom up, whatever you do the most common. Remember, if you are going to edit this, make a new version of it. And I'm going to change it to just Andy there. So now I can edit my parts list and base it on my new style. And we've edited it and we've looked at the styles of it. And the next thing we're going to look at is using this to place balloons.